Okay, so I want to talk about how there is no pure ethnicity or tribe, okay? Because there's this current approach to these things, and it's this, we almost, that's how we engage it, as if these tribes, these cultures are these singular, isolated things, these sort of pure bubbles. We approach it as if they are these pure frozen bubbles, right? These individual pure frozen bubbles, when that's not the way it is. What I mean is, you'll see something like I mentioned in another video where they were talking about doing a study on Irish people. Okay, so what do you mean? Because if you use this sort of, bubbling navigation, within that sort of framework, that ideology, that way, that navigation, technically recent immigrants are Irish. But you have to juggle, right? You kind of have a sense that they're talking about, white identified um white identified people with sort of deep Gaelic origins, right? But even then, it's like, so you're doing a study on Irish people, like a medical study or a genetic study. Is that including people with what if they have like a grandparent or great grandparent that has sort of, deep, or let's say distant English, English origins, the average person of that origin or culture? Um, are they being included? Because that's not totally uncommon. A lot of people, like in England, with that sort of distant um, Anglo English origin, um, have Gaelic origins, and vice versa. Are you including them? Then, if you are, what's the purpose of the study? What does it mean? What is it telling us? Right? Does it include people? And then again, there's people with more. There is no pure Gaelic, pure Irish population or culture or people, because again, there was different sort of migrations throughout Ireland's history with this had this sort of distinct genetic input. So it's like we're we are we can sort of categorize people forever, right? Like, I was talking with someone, they were like, Japanese people do have more lactose intolerance. It's like, okay, there's not really, like, we can, label and categorize people forever. That's just a theoretical imaginary circle around a group of people. Okay. Um, there is no literal or, genetic Japanese person. Okay. Um, that's everything. Or what if it's like what if this person has like a parent from a distinct sort of genetic sub-frequency? Like, let's say someone like, they have sort of deep Punjabi origins, distant Punjabi origins. Are they included in this Irish people? You will never be able to put a circle around people You'll never be able to bubble people, and then that's like this, you know, completely isolated group of people. Okay, that's just not, you know, possible. But that's how we sort of approach it. In another sense, where it's like people will be like, I have a Cherokee grandparent. You have a Cherokee grandparent? Yes. I mean, sure, you you could probably say that person was a member of the Cherokee tribe, but people say it as if it's like a pure culture or even like a pure genes in a sense. Pure in the sense of, you know, separate, isolated, distinct, a bubble, right? But here's the thing, it's like there are Cherokee, um, I mean, it was different for for varying cultures, but it was not uncommon for, say, tribes like the Cherokee to, in warfare, if they're sometimes they would capture people, captives of warfare, and would integrate them into the tribe, where they would eventually have a union with someone, like someone from a different tribe. And then there was sometimes they wouldn't kill younger people, right? Orphans of warfare, and they would integrate them into the tribe. And when they grow up, they would have unions, right? Children. And sometimes it was not totally uncommon for, tribes, closely related tribes, to, have unions with each other, right? There's a Cherokee language, and I guess it's a branch of a language, like Uwakrian or something. So there's other um, Uwakrian languages, and right, tribes that were closely related to Cherokee, or they were, you know, had a closely related language, and they would have unions with them, you know. But then it was more rare, but it still happened where it could be tribes with completely different language families, distantly related genetically and culturally, and they would still have unions with each other. That has happened all around the world throughout history. I guess they use like a sign language type of thing, and like a little, you know, that type of thing. But so that Cherokee grandparent is could be have these sort of genes that we would identify with other tribes and populations and cultures. Okay, but we're just like they're a Cherokee person, you know, this frozen bubble thing. Okay, and then they're not even not that it's not just genetically, but or heritage wise, it's like cultural. Like there's no pure Cherokee culture. There's no pure culture anywhere. There's no pure culture. I'm just using Cherokee as an example, but there's no pure culture of any culture. But that's how we engage it. That's how we speak about it. Like, so if they're having, first of all, even if they're not having a tribe, a culture is not having union with other tribes, there could still even be influence, right? Goes back to that frozen bubble thing. Yeah, there could be bubbles in a sense, but they're not frozen, and they're not sort of in a vacuum. They're not isolated. They're not divided or separate. They are in this sort of open environment, and they're being constantly influenced by other bubbles or cultures. Okay, right, through just close inhabitants, or Like you can trade with another tribe, not necessarily have unions, but you have trades, but you're gonna pick up, oh, what are they cooking? That looks kind of good. Let's go make that. Or, pick up a word or two from them. Right? I forgot what that word for, like that sort of working, it's not quite a Creole, but like a pigeon or whatever, right? That's like sort of this cultural exchange where there's not going to be these pure cultures. But then you have those more sort of heavier influences through unions, right? Through integrating people in your tribe and being closely related to other tribes, right? These closely related tribes, they spoke distinct languages, but they had like close alliances, right? And even these close, distinct languages are still, that doesn't mean like distinct, like distinct. They still have, they could communicate with each other, even though we would label them distinct languages, right? So there is no pure culture. Like even look at something like the Sentinelese Island, okay? Um, so there's that sort of isolated, very isolated um, population there, right? Very, fairly long time. They probably have a distinct genetic pattern. They probably developed a distinct culture, a distinct language that we would likely call like Sentinelese language or something like that, right? Um, but that's still, they're still not a pure tribe because they still originated from another tribe, another culture or cultures, right? Um, and they carry that culture into that island, or they carry that culture with them, okay? Because it doesn't necessarily need a natural barrier or boundary, but they carry that culture within them. So, like, whatever sort of tribe they originated from, that tribal language, they're still speaking. So they develop their own words, their own language, but there's still probably words from those tribes or cultures that they originated from. So there can't be a pure culture, a pure tribe, but that's how we engage it. Like it doesn't, it's not a thing. Or like Ashkenazi Jewish members, um, they so very strict intermarriage, distinct culture, distinct genetic pattern. Yet even with that very strict intermarriage, people still sort of slipped in, right? And it still was influenced by other cultures, and then it still has those sort of cultural elements or echoes from those cultures that they originated from. Hmm. Right now, it's like we have this sort of linear, hierarchical, fragmented approach to this when it's more cyclical. It's more, it's more radiant. Okay, it's like you know, almost like a star, right? Where let's say Ashkenazi Jewish members. It's like a star, right? But it's it's radiating this sort of influence which other people pick up, and then it's also absorbing other things, and then it's on it like it's like these 3D bubbles. They're all interconnected, right? Um, and they all radiate. It's like more. It's more dynamic. It's more fluid. It's more animated. It's more cyclical. it's more radiant, and it's more it's not fragmented. It's, interconnected. Like, it's not these isolated fragments. There's no isolated culture, like a shard, like a bubble. There's no bubble, right? It's how it goes to, like, there's no there's just sort of the Gaian gene pool. The Gaian people gene pool. There is no separate gene pools. It's like it's like a pool. And that's what it is.